If you hear a knock at your door after midnight, don't answer it. I didn't listen. That's where all of this started. The mistake I keep replaying in my head, wondering how I could have been so careless. But the truth is, the real mistake happened long before the knock. It happened the night I convinced myself I was invincible, when I thought curiosity and boredom were excuses good enough to take a walk into places online where no one sane should ever go. I didn't set out to invite something into my life. I wasn't desperate for drugs or guns or anything else you hear about when people whisper about the deep web. Honestly, I thought it was all hype. Horror stories for people with too much imagination and too little technical knowledge. I told myself that with a Tor browser and a little caution, I'd just be a spectator, peeking behind the curtain without ever stepping onto the stage. That was the lie. The deeper I went, the more ordinary it felt at first. Marketplaces laid out like eBay, forums buzzing with the same ego-driven arguments you'd see anywhere. Some listings were predictable: counterfeit passports, hacked Netflix accounts, malware bundles with names that sounded almost cartoonish. It was seedy, sure, but boring in a way. I kept scrolling, thinking maybe all those horror stories really were exaggerated. Then I found it. A section buried 3 or 4 links deep. A place that didn't advertise itself like the others. No banner, no slick design. Just plain white text on a black background. Orders. The listings weren't like anything I'd seen before. No prices at first. No descriptions that made sense. Just cryptic phrases. Real human experience. Guaranteed memory transfer. The box. Each one had a tiny envelope icon next to it, like the only way to get details was to contact the seller directly. That was when I should have clicked away, closed the browser, gone back to watching dumb YouTube videos, and pretending the world wasn't darker than I wanted to believe. But curiosity is a parasite. It burrows in, whispers in your ear, convinces you that you're the one who won't get caught. So I clicked the envelope. The reply came faster than I expected. A plain message, no greeting, no fluff. Place the order, and it will find its way to you. No refunds, no cancellations. Do not ignore delivery. My stomach sank. It was ridiculous. Probably just some scammer trying to spook people. But I couldn't stop staring at those words. It will find its way to you. Like the package already knew where I lived. Like the decision was already made. I told myself it was a joke. That's how I justified it as I typed out a reply. That's how I rationalized it when I followed the instructions, transferring cryptocurrency into a wallet address that felt less like a transaction and more like a blood pact. I kept thinking, what's the worst that could happen? The box doesn't show up. I lose some money. But that's not what happened. The package did arrive, and what was inside wasn't what I ordered. It wasn't even something I could describe as an item, because what showed up wasn't still. It wasn't inert. It was something that breathed, something that waited, and the knock that came after. That's the part I'll never forget. I didn't just invite trouble into my life. I invited it into my home. And if you're still listening, you'll understand why I can't get rid of it, no matter how hard I try. I should have stopped after that first late-night wander, but curiosity doesn't die once you feed it. It grows hungrier. It whispers that you haven't seen the real things yet, that if you just dig a little deeper, you'll uncover the forbidden secrets hiding under the surface. That's how I ended up going back, night after night, scrolling through those shadowed marketplaces like I was window shopping in some cursed mall. At first, it felt like roleplay. part of me laughed at the absurdity of it all. Fake IDs with mugshot quality photos, malware bundles promising undetectable spying tools, even guides on how to make explosives written in sloppy English. It was edgy, sure, but so much of it looked fake that I convinced myself I was untouchable. I told myself I was just an observer. Nobody could hurt me if I didn't buy anything. Then I started noticing the other stuff. Not on the front page. Those were designed to bait curious amateurs like me. But in threads, buried replies, strange hyperlinks with no labels, entire corners of the marketplace opened like trapdoors. The tone shifted. The sellers stopped advertising and started whispering. I stumbled on conversations that didn't feel like commerce at all. They felt like rituals. One thread was called Orders Fulfilled. It didn't have prices or product lists, just strings of messages. Delivered. Taken. Arrived before dawn. Satisfied. It listened. None of it made sense, but all of it chilled me. I should have clicked out right there, but someone in the comments noticed me. New user. Curious. Be careful what you ask for. The message blinked on my screen like a warning shot. For a moment, I thought about closing the browser, deleting Tor, pretending I'd never seen any of it. But I typed back, "What do you mean?" The reply came fast. "Once you place an order, it doesn't matter what you think. The choice isn't yours anymore." I laughed, nervously, trying to brush it off as part of the theater. People on these forums loved to scare newbies, and I was the perfect mark. But deep down, something about the speed of the response unsettled me. Someone was watching me lurk, waiting for me to step just a little too far. That's when I found the vendor. The page was simple. No graphics, no flashy promises. Just a black screen with 3 words in white text. Make an order. The reviews were stranger than the page itself. Arrived. Faster than expected. Wasn't what I thought I'd get, but it's better. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. None of the reviews mentioned what they'd actually received. Just hints, fragments, words heavy with implication. My heart pounded as I scrolled down, as if every line was a lure, dangling closer to my throat. I don't know why I didn't stop. Maybe because I was bored, restless, angry at my own life, and desperate for something that felt like a story worth telling. Maybe because the thought of opening a box from the darkest corners of the internet sounded exciting in the way playing with fire does. Whatever the reason, my hand hovered over the contact seller button until finally I clicked. The first reply was clinical. Payment up front. No questions. No refunds. I hesitated, my cursor shaking over the screen. I typed, "What am I ordering?" The answer came seconds later. "You'll see. It's not about what you want. It's about what's waiting." I should have thrown my laptop across the room. I should have sworn off the whole thing forever. Instead, I laughed, because I didn't want to admit the chill sliding down my spine. It's theater, I told myself. These guys live to creep people out. But when I closed the laptop that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The air in my room felt heavier. The shadows stretched too long. Every sound from the hallway outside my apartment door made me flinch. That's when the voice of reason finally whispered, "If you go any further, there's no turning back." And maybe that's why I ignored it, because I already knew I was going further. When I finally decided to make the order, it wasn't some dramatic, ritualistic moment. There was no candlelight, no trembling hand hovering over the mouse. It happened the way bad decisions usually do, with a shrug, late at night, when I was tired enough to convince myself that nothing I did mattered. The vendor's page hadn't changed. Still those three stark words, make an order. But this time, when I clicked, it opened a blank form. No drop-down menus, no product categories, not even a field to specify what I wanted. Just a single box for payment and a line of text beneath it. What you need will find you. That phrasing unsettled me. Not what you want. What you need. Like it wasn't up to me. Like I was being profiled by something that already knew me better than I knew myself. I hesitated, my cursor flickering over the submit button, the crypto wallet open on the other screen. A voice in the back of my head reminded me of every horror story I'd ever read. People who bought on the deep web and wound up tracked, hacked, or worse. But another voice, louder, crueler, whispered, "It's just money. Worst case, you get scammed. Best case, you find out what's really hiding down here." So I paid. The equivalent of $300. Not enough to ruin me, but enough to sting. Enough to make me feel like I'd committed to something serious. Seconds after the transfer confirmed, I got a message. No subject line, no sender info, just a single sentence. Do not ignore delivery. My stomach dropped. I almost closed everything right then, powered down my computer, and chalked it up as the dumbest purchase I'd ever made. But I couldn't stop staring at those words. Do not ignore delivery. Delivery. That meant something physical was coming. Something that would have my address, my name, my door. And yet, when I thought back, I realized I'd never entered my shipping information. I'd never given them anything. I sat frozen for several minutes, heart pounding, trying to remember if I'd slipped up. Had I logged in with the wrong account? Accidentally exposed something? But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I hadn't. They already knew where I lived. I tried to sleep that night, but my body wouldn't relax. Every creak in the building made me jolt awake, convinced it was someone sliding a box against my door. I dreamed of faceless delivery drivers, hands knocking in slow, deliberate rhythms. Each time I woke, I checked the people, the hallway, the locks. Nothing. The next day dragged. I went to work, but I couldn't focus. Every sound of wheels on pavement outside, every ring of a desk phone, every notification buzz made my skin prickle. By the time I got home, my nerves were shot. My front door looked different somehow, like it was waiting for me to open it. I checked the hallway. No package. I almost laughed with relief. Told myself the whole thing had been a scam after all. But when I turned back toward my apartment, something caught my eye. An envelope. Thin, unmarked, wedged under my doorframe so tightly it must have been forced through the gap. I bent down, hesitating before picking it up. My fingers brushed the paper, and I swear it felt warm. Inside was a single slip of paper, typed in the same blunt font I'd seen on the vendor's page. Delivery scheduled. Be ready. No address, no date, no sender. That night, I couldn't bring myself to turn off the lights. I lay awake on the couch, staring at the door, waiting, but nothing came. Not then. 2 days passed. Normal days. Almost peaceful, like life was giving me a chance to step back before the fall. But by the third night, the peace had rotted into dread again. Every knock from a neighbor's door echoed in my chest. Every passing delivery truck outside made me sweat. And then, on the fourth night, it happened. The knock. 3 sharp raps, slow and deliberate, echoing through the quiet hall at 12:17 a.m. I froze. My body screamed at me to stay still, stay silent, pretend I wasn't home. But the words from the vendor's message dug into me. Do not ignore delivery. My hands shook as I approached the door. Through the peephole, I saw nothing, just the dim hallway, stretching silent and empty. But when I opened the door, there it was, a package, plain brown cardboard, no tape, no labels, about the size of a shoebox. It sat perfectly centered on the welcome mat, like it had been placed with unnatural precision. I bent down, heart pounding, and touched it. The cardboard was damp, cool, almost breathing. I jerked my hand back, bile rising in my throat. I wanted to slam the door, lock every bolt, pretend it wasn't there. But the paper's command replayed in my head, and some part of me, a reckless, poisoned part, knew I couldn't ignore it. So I picked it up. The weight surprised me, heavier than it looked, uneven inside, as though whatever it held shifted with my movements. I carried it inside, set it on the table, and just stared. I didn't open it that night. I couldn't. But even as I sat across from it, trembling, I could hear something faint from inside, a sound like breathing, and that was when I realized I hadn't ordered an object. I had ordered something alive. I didn't sleep that night. The box sat on the table like an accusation, daring me to touch it again. Every so often, I thought I heard it, just the faintest hitch of sound, too rhythmic to be my imagination. A slow inhale, a shallow exhale, breathing. I tried to drown it out with the TV, with music, even with the shower running, but it was always there underneath, not loud, not demanding, just patient, waiting. By dawn, my nerves were shredded. I left the apartment without looking back, convinced that if I could just spend the day in the noise of the world, I'd return to find the box ordinary again. Just cardboard, just shadows. But when I came home that evening, the air was thick, stale, as though the whole place had been holding its breath all day. And the box was no longer on the table. It was on the floor, centered in the living room, perfectly aligned with the rug. I hadn't touched it. No one else had a key. Yet there it was, like it had chosen a better spot to wait. I froze in the doorway, every instinct screaming at me to leave, to run, to never come back. But I couldn't. The pull was stronger than my fear. I stepped inside, shut the door behind me, and stared at it. Hours passed. I circled the box like it was a predator I couldn't provoke. I didn't eat. I didn't move. I just sat, watching, listening to that almost silent breath inside. Finally, sometime past midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. I opened it. The flaps peeled back easily, too easily, like the cardboard had been softened from the inside. No tape to cut, no seal to break. Inside, at first, there was only darkness. I expected packing paper, foam, something to fill the space, but there was nothing. Just a black interior that seemed deeper than it should be, as though the box had no bottom. And then I saw it. Nestled against the far corner was a note, folded neatly. I reached in, my hand trembling as my fingers brushed the paper. It was damp, like it had been soaked and then dried in. Salt. I unfolded it carefully. 4 words, typed, scented, unmistakable. Do not look inside. My throat went dry. I stared at the warning, my mind spiraling. Wasn't I already looking inside? Wasn't that what I was doing right then? I dropped the note back into the box, my pulse hammering in my ears. The air felt thicker now, pressing down on me, and for the first time I noticed the smell. It wasn't strong, not enough to gag me, but sharp, like seawater left too long in a bucket, or fish scaled and left to rot in the sun. I staggered back, covering my nose, eyes watering. I wanted to close the flaps, to shove the box into a closet, to pretend I'd never seen it. But something stopped me. Something subtle. A movement. I swear I saw it. just at the edge of my vision, a ripple in the blackness inside the box, like the surface of water disturbed by a breath. I slammed the flap shut, my hands shaking so violently I could barely fold them into place. The moment it was closed, the sound returned, louder now, breathing, steady and deliberate, resonating through the cardboard into the table beneath. I stumbled back, heart pounding, bile rising in my throat. I wanted to scream, but the sound lodged in my chest. I grabbed my phone, hands slick with sweat, and typed out a frantic message to the seller. "What is in the box?" The reply came instantly, as though they'd been waiting. "You looked. It knows you." I dropped the phone, the words burning into my brain. My stomach knotted, my vision blurred. The box sat there in silence, but I could feel it. Something inside listening, learning, aware. The hours after that blurred together. I tried to distract myself, pacing the apartment, turning on every light. But no matter what I did, my eyes kept drifting back to the table, to the box, to the knowledge that inside it was something I could never unknow. By the time morning light seeped through the blinds, I was shaking from exhaustion. I thought maybe sleep would erase it, dull the edge of terror. I collapsed on the couch, and for a few merciful hours I drifted into darkness. But when I woke, the box was gone. Not moved this time. Gone. The table was bare, the rug empty, every corner of the room clean. I scrambled to my feet, panic clawing through me. I tore through the apartment, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, but there was nothing. No box, no note, nothing. For one brief, desperate moment, I thought I'd imagined it, that it had been a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and paranoia, that I was safe again. And then came the knock. 3 raps. Slow, deliberate. I froze. The sound came not from the door, but from inside, from the closet in the hallway. I crept toward it, every nerve screaming to turn back. My hand shook as I reached for the knob, sweat dripping down my spine. The knocking stopped, replaced by silence. I opened the door, and there it was, the box, centered perfectly on the closet floor, flaps sealed tight, waiting for me to touch it again. I left the closet door wide open that night, like somehow seeing the box in plain view would keep it from moving again. I sat on the couch, with every light in the apartment blazing, my eyes locked on that square of cardboard, like it was a predator crouched in the dark. Hours ticked by, the silence broken only by the buzzing hum of bulbs and the hammering of my heart. And then it moved. Not much, just the faintest scrape, the sound of cardboard shifting against linoleum, but enough to freeze me in place. My breath caught in my throat. The box trembled, subtle at first, then more violently, as though something inside was pushing against the flaps. I told myself it was impossible. Cardboard doesn't breathe. Boxes don't move on their own. But there it was, shuddering in the closet, rattling like it contained a live animal desperate to get out. I stood up, knife in hand, though I knew a blade wouldn't help me if whatever was inside decided to come out. My legs carried me closer against my better judgment. Each step felt like crossing an invisible line I couldn't return from. When I was close enough, I heard it again, the breathing, louder now, labored, wet. It wasn't just air being drawn in and out. It was broken, uneven, like lungs that didn't belong in this world were trying to mimic human rhythm. "Hello?" My voice cracked, absurdly polite, as if I was introducing myself to a neighbor instead of addressing whatever nightmare I'd let into my home. Something shifted inside the box. A faint thump, Then silence. I leaned closer, my ear nearly against the cardboard, and that's when I heard it. A whisper. Faint, distorted, like radio static wrapped around a voice. Only 2 words, but enough to make my blood run cold. Let me. I staggered back, my knife clattering to the floor. My mind scrambled for explanations, recordings, speakers, elaborate pranks, but nothing fit. This wasn't a sound layered in from outside. It came from inside. Desperate, I grabbed my phone, fumbling to record. The closet was silent again, the box perfectly still, as if mocking me. I played the clip back, but all I heard was my own ragged breathing and the creak of floorboards. That was when the message arrived. A notification blinked on my screen. Unknown sender. No subject line. The body was blank, except for one phrase. You heard it too. My mouth went dry. I wanted to type back, demand answers, but my thumbs wouldn't move. The message disappeared before I could save it, vanishing as though it had never been there at all. The box stayed still the rest of the night, but sleep didn't come. Every shadow stretched too long. Every noise set my nerves on fire. I sat awake until dawn, eyes burning, waiting for the next sign. It came the following evening. I was in the kitchen, trying to pretend life was normal by making coffee I'd never drink, when I heard my name. Not from outside, not from my phone, from the living room. I froze, mug trembling in my hand. Slowly, I turned. The box was open. The flaps were peeled back like a mouth unhinged, and the air that poured out was damp, heavy, tinged with that same briny rot. My body seized, every instinct screaming to run, but my legs carried me forward, closer, until I stood at the threshold of the dark interior. And there, deep inside, I saw it. A shape. Not clear, not whole, just a suggestion of movement in the blackness. Limbs too long, eyes that glowed faintly like coals. And that voice again, rising from the void, whispering my name with such familiarity, it felt like it had known me my entire life. Please, it rasped. Don't close me. I snapped the flap shut so hard, the cardboard tore beneath my palms. My chest heaved, my vision blurred, bile surged in my throat. I shoved the box back into the closet and slammed the door, throwing my entire weight against it, as if that would keep it contained. But the voice didn't stop. Muffled now, desperate, pleading. Over and over it whispered, "Don't close me. Don't close me. Don't close me." I pressed my hands over my ears, but the words burrowed deeper, vibrating in my skull, etching themselves into my brain. Even when the whispers finally faded, silence didn't feel like safety anymore. It felt like a trap. I didn't leave my apartment the next day. Couldn't. The thought of opening the door, of letting the box slip away into the world outside, terrified me more than keeping it here. I felt like I'd become its warden, chained to it by some unseen contract. That night, I gathered the courage to try something different. I opened the closet slowly, half expecting the box to be gone again, but it was there, flaps sealed, waiting. I spoke to it. "What do you want from me?" My voice trembled, but part of me hoped it would answer, hoped for clarity, even if it meant hearing that awful rasp again. And it did. Through the thin cardboard, the words came clearer this time, steady and deliberate. "You let me in. Now let me out." I staggered back, my knees buckling. The box didn't move. It didn't need to. The message was enough. That's when I realized this wasn't just an object I'd ordered. It wasn't merchandise. It was a passenger, a parasite, a delivery waiting for someone to open it completely, and it had chosen me. I stopped pretending my life was normal after that night. Work emails piled up unanswered. Friends' texts stayed unopened. I barely ate, barely slept. Every thought was orbiting the same dark sun, the box. It had become the center of my existence, the thing every shadow in my apartment bent toward. At first, it only whispered when I was near. I'd open the closet and hear my name, faint and desperate, as if it was pleading with me to free it. But soon, it started following me. I'd hear it in the bathroom, water hissing down the drain while a voice slid through the pipes. I'd hear it in the hum of my fridge, syllables hidden in the motor's groan. Once, I heard it through the static of my headphones, even though they weren't plugged into anything. Always the same demand. Let me out. I tried to fight back. I taped the flaps down. I wrapped the box in plastic and shoved it into a locked trunk. I even scrawled salt lines across the floor like I'd seen in old ghost hunter shows, desperate for anything that might keep it contained. It didn't matter. Every morning, the box was back in the center of the living room, bare and perfect, as though mocking my attempts. The trunk sat empty. The tape was gone. The salt was scattered, like invisible fingers had dragged it across the carpet. On the fifth night, things changed. The knocking returned. Not at the closet this time, not even at the door. It came from the walls. 3 deliberate thuds, traveling around the room in a slow circle. I followed it with wide eyes as it moved from one wall to the next, the sound reverberating like something huge was crawling just beneath the plaster. I pressed my palms against the drywall. It vibrated beneath my touch, steady and strong, like the beat of a monstrous heart. Then I saw it, my name, carved into the paint. At first, I thought I was hallucinating, but no, the letters were gouged deep, the plaster flaking where something sharp had dug in. Not once, but over and over. My name scrawled across the walls, the floor, even the ceiling, until it felt like I was trapped in a shrine dedicated to my own damnation. That was when I broke. I grabbed the box with both hands, ignoring the way it seemed to pulse beneath my fingers, and I ran. Out of my apartment, down the stairs, into the cold night air. I didn't care who saw me. I just needed it gone. I dumped it in a dumpster 3 blocks away, slammed the lid, and staggered home, chest burning with hope. For the first time in days, I felt free. Until I opened my door. It was sitting on the table, right where it had been that first night. The flaps were open now, yawning wide, and a note lay on top. In the same stark font as before, it read, "You can't send it back. It already knows you." I screamed. I tore the note to pieces, shredded the box with a knife, stomped the cardboard into pulp. But the moment I blinked, it was whole again, sitting patiently, breathing softly, waiting. That's when I remembered the forums. The reviews that hadn't made sense at the time arrived faster than expected. It's better than I thought. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. They weren't reviews. They were warnings disguised as praise. Or maybe not warnings at all. Maybe confessions. I logged back into the marketplace, desperate for answers. Most of the vendor pages were gone, deleted, replaced with user-removed notices. But buried in the threads, I found a single active profile. A buyer like me. I messaged them frantically. "Did you order the box? Did it come to you too?" The reply came minutes later. "Yes. I tried everything. You can't destroy it." My heart pounded as I typed. "Then what do I do?" There was a long pause. Too long. I almost thought they'd left me to rot. Then finally, A new message blinked onto the screen. Pass it on. I stared at the words until my vision blurred. Pass it on. That was the solution. To hand this nightmare to someone else. Condemn them the way I'd been condemned. I wanted to believe it was a lie. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Because when I turned back toward the box, there was a new note resting on top, the ink still glistening, as if freshly printed. Choose someone, or it chooses. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Because for the first time, the fear wasn't just about what was inside the box. It was about who I might have to give it to. I thought I understood the rules of the box. Don't ignore delivery. Don't try to send it back. Don't close it when it wants to be open. But the note left on my table changed everything. Choose someone, or it chooses. For the first time since this nightmare began, I realized I wasn't just trapped with the box. I was being tested. It wasn't only about survival. It was about participation. I tried to tell myself it was bluffing, that the words were meaningless, that it couldn't actually act on its own. But the scratches on my walls, the whispers in my pipes, the way it always returned no matter what I did, those weren't the tricks of an empty threat. The box was alive, and it had rules I hadn't yet discovered. So I opened it. The flaps parted like the skin of some rotten fruit. Inside, instead of darkness, I saw something new. Sheets of paper, dozens of them, stacked neatly like files in an archive. I pulled the top one out with trembling fingers. It was a photograph, not a cartoonish drawing, not a blurred glitch from a video feed. A real photograph of a man I'd never seen before. He sat at a desk, hunched, his face pale and drawn. His eyes were wide, his mouth twisted into a grimace. Behind him, on his wall, I recognized it. The same scratches of names I'd seen in my own apartment. I dropped the photo, bile rising in my throat. The next sheet was another photo, this time of a woman curled in the corner of a bedroom, her hands clamped over her ears as if trying to block out whispers. Another was a teenager, wild-eyed, holding a phone that displayed the words, "You heard it too." Every photo was someone else. Every face bore the same terror I felt, the same mark of obsession. They weren't strangers. They were predecessors, other buyers, other victims. The bottom of the stack held a single page of text, typed, clinical, formatted like a set of instructions. The box, containment protocols, transfer required, observation ongoing. And beneath that, a list, names, dates, locations. My blood went cold as I skimmed the entries. Each line documented someone who had received the box. The locations jumped across the globe: Tokyo, Berlin, São Paulo, Chicago. Each name ended with the same final note: transferred. But the last entry stopped me cold. It was my name, my address, today's date, and next to it, the word pending. I dropped the papers back into the box, my mind spinning. This wasn't random. This wasn't chaos. This was a system, an operation spanning years, maybe decades. The box wasn't a curse. It was a project. The next whisper confirmed it. "You understand now." The voice rose from the box, clearer than ever, layered with dozens of tones like a choir of the damned. "What are you?" I croaked. The air in the room thickened, pressing against my chest. The whisper became a growl. "We are what waits. We are what spreads. You are what carries." My vision swam, my ears ringing with static. I wanted to slam the flap shut again, but something in me knew it was useless. It would just open again, or worse, move closer on its own. The box wasn't asking anymore. It was instructing. The message from the forum replayed in my head. Pass it on. I stumbled back, clutching my temples, trying to force logic into the madness. Maybe this was a hoax, a sick experiment run by some group of hackers. Maybe they used the deep web to recruit people like me, turning our paranoia against us. But how do hackers carve your name into the walls from the inside? How do they make you hear voices in the static of a dead TV? My phone buzzed, breaking my spiral. A new message blinked on the screen. No number, just 3 words. Time is running. That night, I dreamed of the box, not sitting in my living room, but being carried down an endless hallway by faceless figures. They passed it from one to the next, each pair of hands trembling, each set of lips whispering the same phrase. Choose someone, or it chooses. I woke with my heart hammering, drenched in sweat. The box sat at the foot of my bed. Another note rested on top. The longer you wait, the closer it comes. I don't know what it was supposed to mean, the thing inside the box, or something worse, something that only arrives if you fail to play along. I tried to think of loopholes. Could I choose no one? Could I trick it by writing down a fake name, a fake address? But some instinct told me it wouldn't work. The box wasn't just reading what I wrote. It was reading me. I thought about my neighbors, the people who lived one door down, the old woman across the hall. Ordinary people who'd done nothing wrong. Could I damn them to this? Could I live with myself if I did? But the other option was clear. If I didn't, the box would choose. And when I looked at the walls of my apartment, at the way my name had multiplied overnight, scratched deeper, darker, crawling across every surface, I knew exactly who it would choose. Me. The voices grew louder after that. No longer whispers, but a chorus in my head. In the shower, at the sink, in the drone of traffic outside my window, always the same demand, the same chant. Pass it on, pass it on, pass it on. I don't know how long I can resist. My will is fraying, my body is weak. But before I make my choice, before I condemn someone else, I need to tell this story. Because if the box finds you, if you hear the knock at your door after midnight, I need you to understand. It isn't a package. It isn't a prank. It's a summons. And if you open it, you'll never close it again. I haven't left my apartment in days. The curtains stay drawn. The lights burn 24 hours. And the box follows me from room to room, no matter where I put it. I've stopped trying to fight that part. It always wins. What I'm fighting now is the choice it keeps demanding. Every morning, a new note appears on top. Different words, same meaning. Pass it on. Choose or be chosen. Someone must carry. I tear them up, burn them, flush them down the toilet. But more arrive. Sometimes in the box, sometimes on the counter, sometimes tucked under my pillow. The voices are constant now. Not whispers anymore. Not even separate murmurs. They've merged into a single heavy voice that fills every corner of my apartment. It doesn't just speak. It vibrates, rattling my teeth, pressing into my bones. Time is running. Time is running. I don't know what happens if time runs out. I don't want to find out. Last night, I sat on the floor with the box in front of me, staring into that impossible blackness inside. I tried to reason with it, begging like a prisoner, pleading for mercy. Please, take me. Leave everyone else alone. Just finish this. The answer came slow, deliberate. Not how it works. You are not the end. You are the door. My stomach twisted. The door. That's all I was. A step. A threshold. The thing that lets it through. I thought about my neighbors again, about calling one of them over, about shoving the box into their arms and slamming the door shut. I thought about texting a friend, luring them here with some flimsy excuse. But every time I pictured their faces, I heard the laughter from the box, broken and wheezing, mocking me for even considering it. Because the truth is, it doesn't matter who carries it next. Once it marks you, you never really escape. The box isn't a curse that passes clean. It's a contagion. Every carrier leaves pieces of themselves behind, etched into the next victim, like graffiti on a prison wall. I know this because I found another stack of papers inside the box. More photographs, more terrified faces. And in the corner of one picture, just barely visible in the mirror behind the subject, was me. Not now me. Not the me holding the photo, but me sitting at my desk, watching the episode play out on my laptop weeks ago. That's when I realized the box doesn't just contain the thing. It contains us. Every choice, every moment, every scrap of fear gets folded inside like layers. And no matter what I do, I'm already part of its collection. So why am I writing this? Because maybe telling you is my loophole. Maybe if I can't hand you the box physically, I can hand it to you with words. Maybe that's what passing it on really means. I don't know if it'll work. Maybe it'll just make the voices louder, angrier, hungrier. But if there's even a chance it eases their grip on me, I'll take it. Because I can't live like this anymore. I can't wake up every night to that midnight knock, knowing there's nothing on the other side of the door but emptiness. I can't keep finding new carvings of my name on the walls, the ceiling, the mirror, each one deeper than the last. I can't keep pretending that the box hasn't already hollowed me out, piece by piece, until all that's left is dread. So here's my warning. If a package shows up at your door with no return address, don't touch it. Don't move it. Don't even look at it too long. Pretend it isn't there. Because once you acknowledge it, once you make eye contact with the thing that waits inside, it knows you. And once it knows you, it never lets go. The last note I found didn't say, pass it on. It said something worse. We're already here. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means the box doesn't need to travel anymore. Maybe it means simply hearing the story, simply imagining the blackness inside is enough to let it in. And if that's true, then I've doomed you just by speaking. I'm sorry. Even now, as I type these last words, the knocking has started again. Louder this time, closer, not from the closet, not from the door, from the walls. The whole apartment trembles with it, plaster cracking, dust falling from the ceiling. My name is being carved again, letter by letter, but now it isn't stopping at the walls. I feel it scratching inside me too, etching into my bones. The lights are flickering, the screen is stuttering, and over it all, the voice is laughing. That broken, endless laugh I can't block out anymore. If this post cuts off, if the screen goes black, you'll know why. And if you hear a knock at your door after midnight, don't answer it. Because this time, it won't be a package. It'll be me.